Hello, and welcome to another virtual author event at the Poison Pen Bookstore. I'm John Charles, and today the Poison Pen is delighted to have with us new author Robin Yeatman, whose book Bookworm was just published this month. Before we begin our chat, I would like to let those listening in know that the Poison Pen does have copies of Robin's new book, and we would be happy to hold one for you to pick up at the store or put one in the mail. Just go online or give us a call at the Poison Pen. And now I'd like to welcome Robin Yeatman.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. I really have to say right up front, Bookworm was one of the most inventive things I've ever read. It's not something you can classify or fit neatly into one slot. It's just kind of unique.
Thank you. Yeah, that's true. Different readers seem to make of it different things. So I've heard people call it a dark comedy, satire, domestic thriller, psychological thriller, literary fiction. I've even had people call it noir or a rom-com. I wouldn't call it a rom-com myself. I know there's some rom in there and there's some com in there, but
Yeah, it's a rom-com gone bad if it's a rom-com.
yes. Yes, it came out on February 14th, and I like to call it my anti-Valentine's gift to the world.
That's clever. I always like to start because I'm fascinated by how an author got to the point of publication, their background before. Who was Robin before you got published? If I understand things correctly, you were a very hungry bookworm since beginning to read at the age of 3.
That's correct. Yes, reading has always been such a huge part of my life. And I think being a reader, I think all readers agree, it's a way of life. What would we do without it? This is an integral part of our lives. And I've always been a huge reader. And I've always been a writer as well. I wrote my first novel at the age of 12 on an electronic typewriter.
Wow.
Nobody will see that, but you know, I've always loved writing. I had my undergraduate degree in English literature, and I took creative writing courses at university, and it's always just been a part of my life.
Did you kind of reach a point where you decided, I know for a lot of aspiring writers, you have to make the calculation, can I earn a living at this, or do I need to do something different? Because if I understand correctly, you have some experience in radio broadcast and radio journalism.
I do, yeah. So when I was in undergraduate university, I wrote for the university newspaper regularly, the UBC newspaper. And I determined that I was going to probably go into the media in some way, shape, or form. And my journey took me to radio. And so I didn't do a lot of writing during that time of my life, but I really learned about immediacy and communication. And there are things that you do have to write on the fly and perform on the fly. And so I think that was really informative and instructive for me. But it was a little different it's very different actually from what a writer's life. A writer's life is very solitary, and the experience is very private and solitary in the moment, whereas radio is so performative.
It's a collaborative effort, yeah.
Absolutely.
So you decided you wanted to write a novel, and if I understand correctly, Bookworm started out as a short story.
That's right. Yes. I just had this germ of an idea, and I wanted to explore it in the short form first. And as I was writing the short story, I kind of thought, wow, I think this might have a lot more legs. I think I could do a lot more with this. But my initial idea was, what if a woman could see a complete stranger and be convinced, even without making eye contact with that person, that is her person? And then it became more, I thought, well, it'd be more interesting if this woman was also married. It would be more interesting if she was unhappily married and imagining the violent end of her spouse. And so that it went off from there.
How did the book get into publication from short story to the novel we have today?
Well, it was a long journey. I'm sure most authors will attest that it sure goes slower than you'd think. I worked on it for probably around a year before I attended a wonderful writers workshop in Iowa City. They have a summer writers festival, and I attended a week-long workshop where I shared pages and got some really valuable input from my instructor and also my peers in my class. And from there, I was really energized, and I worked on it for another full year. And then, of course, there was the search for what. Once I realized, okay, I've finished playing around with it. It's not getting any better. It's just kind of getting shuffled around. It's becoming different and not better. So I stopped and knew that it was time to send it to an agent. And I was super, super fortunate to find just the most marvelous agent I could ask for. That's not to say that it was easy for him to find a publisher. Actually, it was about a year and a half before we found a home for it. But Sarah Nelson at HarperCollins was the person who picked it up and decided, yeah, I like this. Because I think, as you said, a lot of people who read it didn't know what to make of it and weren't sure how they're going to sell it.
Yeah.
Because it's doesn't fit quite neatly in one category.
What can you tell those listening in about the book without spoiling too much of it?
So this book is about a woman who's a reader, a very introverted, private, imaginative person who is in her head a lot, and who copes with her loneliness and copes with her unhappiness by taking flights of fancy. And so this book is about, it asks the question, can a fantasy life be dangerous? And at what point does the fantasy life bleed into the real life? So that's...
It's also kind of a love letter to reading and to books at its core.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had so much fun adding literary Easter eggs throughout this book. There are many books that I've referenced in Bookworm. Somebody told me the other day that a reader on Goodreads had actually made a list of all of the book references made. And I think there's something around 45 books that have been referenced. And so I think readers in particular are going to have a lot of fun uncovering those literary Easter eggs. They were a really great way for me to reveal character and possibly foreshadow plot.
Did you give your protagonist Victoria some of your own bookish tendencies? I'm thinking in particular when the book opens, when the novel opens, she's in a cafe reading a book that she absolutely can't stand. And I immediately knew which book you were talking about, and I completely agree with you on a different level. I can't understand why people love that book, but people do. But yet she won't let it go. Are you that kind of person that once you start reading something, even if you hate it, you can't?
Yes, I feel this responsibility to the book. I feel like my opinion is not valid unless I've made it right to the very end. So a book that's 721 pages and I haven't enjoyed one of them, so I have a really hard time letting that go. I have to see it through, and then I cannot like it, and then I can say I don't like it. It's silly because I think that when people become mature readers, they realize, well, there's limited time and I want to read things that I enjoy. But I do struggle with not finishing a book, and Victoria's like that too.
Yeah, you're not alone. There are readers out there that that's something they have to do. Does Victoria share your taste in literature too? I'm thinking of examples you give, like Anne of Green Gables and Patricia Highsmith. Are those personal favorites of yours in addition to kind of playing into the storyline?
Yeah, I have to admit, yes. Especially the ones that you just mentioned. Ella Montgomery, who wrote the Anne of Green Gables series and many other books. She was one of the gateway writers for me as a child. I read compulsively. I still have all of my L.M. Montgomery books on a shelf somewhere. And Patricia Highsmith is like a muse for me. I adore her. I think that she's amazing, and she's continues to be relevant. People keep making film adaptations of her wonderful books, and they're fascinated with her personal life. Her style is just magnificent. I think it's a wonderful style to try to emulate. Not that I did that, but I really do love the way that one of her great gifts is that she endears her readers to really dislikable and dangerous characters.
Yeah. I think you actually kind of really did her proud. You have the same kind of economical writing style. There's a lot there, but there's not a lot of words used. And you're right. At least my experience with Victoria was she's not someone you really want to have as a best friend or a neighbor or in your life, but yet you're oddly compelled to watch how her life unfolds.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, I think that she may not be particularly likable, and as you say, you wouldn't want to be married to her probably. But she is relatable. I think that many of us have similar thoughts, but we just don't voice them. And neither does she voice them. We're privy to her private life. We're privy to her inner life. And I think if most people were honest with themselves, they would say, yeah, I do that too. I look at someone, I make a snap judgment about someone. When I don't always voice my opinion, I might smile and nod on the outside, and I present one way on the outside, but I'm feeling pretty bitter, or I'm feeling pretty misunderstood on the inside. Some people who feel trapped in their circumstances have the similar types of dark fantasies about ways they could get out, ways they could change things for themselves. So.
In addition to being a reader of books, Victoria is a reader of people. When she's out there, she's kind of making up stories about them. How did that come to you as an author too? That's a characteristic I want to give my protagonist.
I think I wanted her to use that as another way of employing her fantasy life, and another way of not focusing on her own unhappiness.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it made sense for me as a person that, like Victoria, she's able to take these astral flights at night. Oh. That she would also be sort of tapped into this third eye, this kind of witchy third eye that sees other people's realities. And she's comforting herself, because usually when she sees a person and starts reading them and thinking in her head about what their lives are like, their lives aren't very good. And so I think it's a way for her to say, yeah, that person also is kind of unhappy in their life. I'm not the only one.
That's an interesting thread that you're kind of pulling out, because I think some readers, when they come to this book, will think, why doesn't she just leave her marriage if she's so unhappy? But you present kind of a case as to why she's, in a sense, trapped. And I think one of the themes that you explore is how domestic relationships, we don't really know what's going on. The only people that do are the people involved in them.
Absolutely. And I think most people would agree that most people who've been married or divorced would agree that it's actually not that easy just to leave a marriage. It's a very difficult thing, and it takes a lot of courage, and it can be very, very painful. So it's easier sometimes just to grin and bear it and hope that it gets better, or, just make your ways of escaping, which aren't always good and aren't always healthy or honest.
That's true. And Victoria, and it's Ian, I believe, is her husband. Their marriage is, in a way, kind of destroys that romantic myth of opposites attracting, because they are total opposites. I mean, he's not a reader, she's a reader. Even the way you structured their life, she lives everything by his no clutter, sterile, white decor. Is that kind of to foreshadow or to point to what their marriage was really like?
Yes, I think so. I wanted to show that it was in a box. It was very tightly controlled, and there's no color, there's no art, there's no room to soar and explore. Eric has to do, he has to have his badminton game on Monday, and then he does this on Tuesday, and then he meets his friends on. It's always the same. Every day is the same, and so the monotony it's a somewhat exaggerated version of the monotony of the relationship.
And the man that Victoria fixates on as her fantasy lover, what made you think I'm going to make him a furniture maker or a wood person?
Well, I guess in a way he's like the opposite of the husband. He works with his hands. She perceives that as being a very artistic and sensual thing, so that attracts her. He's creative. He works for himself. He's not working for the man. He's not waiting for someone to give him a promotion and position. And he's independent. I think that really attracts her.
In addition to the whole plot going on, you throw in, as you've mentioned, several things about the reader's experience. And for those that might not be as fluent, you mentioned things like a book hangover. Victoria experiences that. What exactly is a book hangover?
Well, I think most of us as readers have probably experienced this when we've read something so powerful or so potent, even in whether it's a good, powerful, or a good experience or a not good experience. We experience this hangover. Like we can't find a book to follow it. We can't invest in something new because we're still so entrenched in what we've just come from.
And you also talk about the physical experience of reading. Victoria is kind of stuck with digital because of her husband's wishes, but you go into kind of just the tactile sensory exploration of reading. Can you talk? Are you personally an e-reader, or you prefer the physical book? How does that play into your reading experience?
I definitely prefer the physical book. I understand that people read in all different ways, and I have read digitally, and that's great. There are good things about reading digitally. But for me, I love to be able to hold the book in my hand, to be able to glance at the author photo or at the cover at any moment, to dog ear the pages, to really, really own the book and maybe make little notes in it. I love the smell of a book. I just think that they're wonderful.
Now the book is published. As you look back over this journey, what do you wish you could tell yourself that you know now about publishing back when you started? What has surprised you about this process?
Wow, that's a really, really good question. I think I would, okay, I would tell myself, don't look at reviews. Try not to worry about those things, because it's really impossible to meet everyone's expectations, and there are lots of wonderful readers out there who will connect to it, and there are people that might not. So I think that that would probably be what I'd tell myself, to avoid a little bit of a little bit of a upset when I see that maybe people's expectations haven't been met.
It's really, I think it's challenging for writers, because a lot of times readers may pick up a book and they may not be in the right frame of mind for it at that point in time. And that's going to influence how they read it. And it's fine. Not every book is for every reader. That's certainly true. But it's when you invest that much of your literary and artistic effort into something, you kind of hope that people are giving it a fair shot.
That's very well said. and it's so true that the timing is everything, and not every book is for every person. Um, and maybe some people expect one thing and they get something completely, maybe, Bookworm is pretty subversive, and it can maybe poke at things. So it's possible that some people just aren't comfortable with that. But I think I've found a lot of people who've responded to it and have been had lots of fun with it. So I'm just learning to let it go out there. It belongs to the reader. It doesn't belong to me anymore. I really respect everybody's individual experience with the book. And so that's been a great lesson for me.
That's a very smart approach to take. In addition to writing a book, now authors, at least most authors, are expected to promote their books. And it's not just simply putting the book out there. You have to figure out ways to market it, how to get it to the attention of readers. You do have, I think, a background in a different kind of creative endeavor. Have you used that to market the book? How do you find yourself drawing on your own skills to get this in front of readers?
Hmm. To be perfectly honest, I'm actually such a private person, so
Oh,
it's not that easy for me to just put
no.
myself out there. And I haven't even, up until the book's publication, which was on the 14th of February, I hadn't shared my book with my family or my friends.
Wow.
I was so
So they didn't
because
know until publication date that you had a book coming?
well, they knew it was coming, but I was too, I just told them to wait till it came out before to read
Oh,
it. And
okay.
so to promote it and to sell it is a little out of my comfort zone, but I'm getting there, and I'm excited about it. I do want to share it with everyone, and so I've been doing what I can to promote it and to talk about it, and I'm looking forward to any other opportunities that I have. Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about you as a reader, because the book is about reading. You've mentioned that you were a reader from a very young age. Are there particular authors that kind of are touchstones for you as a reader? Books that you've read that left you with a book hangover, authors that you find you couldn't live without?
Hmm. Um, I would say, as a young adult, that I was really influenced by Margaret Atwood,
Yeah.
and then Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment, and the Brothers Karamazov. Those left me breathless and just in awe. More recent writers that I admire deeply, I've already mentioned Patricia Highsmith,
Mhm.
also John Updike.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm so I'm so interested in relationships and in domestic relationships. And besides being an absolutely elegant and fantastic writer, he just revisits that theme so often, just going right into the home and right into the bedroom and revealing the struggles and just what happens between married people. So I really, really love reading him. Um, I also have to say Otessa Moshfegh, as a more contemporary writer, really inspired me. When I first read her book, Eileen, I thought, oh my God, here's somebody who does what they want. She really writes just the way she wants, and she's very brave. And I admire that. So I don't want to write a book like her necessarily, but I want to write like her in that I want to be a brave writer like she is.
That's interesting. And Bookworm is definitely a very distinctive, it's something that won't be to every reader's taste, but you're taking a gamble with it. Um, how does that translate into future projects? Do you find yourself wanting to do all sorts of different things, or do you find that this domestic kind of crime, thriller, suspense neighborhood is where you prefer to work?
I think Yes, the latter. I think my project that I'm working on right now would be similarly described as a domestic suspense satire, similar to what I've done here in Bookworm. I'm really, really interested in what happens between two people. And so my next book also takes the reader right into the nexus of what's happening between a different couple.
Has the second book been a different experience? Because for many writers, you have so much time to work on your first book, and then you're given the chance to write a second book, and it's like, okay, you've got 6 months or whatever the time frame is.
Yeah, there will definitely, yes, it is a different experience. I do feel like because people want to see a second book, that I better get moving. It's not like the first book, you just sit, you never even know if this will ever see the light of day. I was up between 5 and 7 every morning, or I was on the side of the road in my car, and I was just writing, not knowing that if anybody else would ever see this ever. So it is a different experience in that way. But I'm still feeling like the process has not changed for me. With Bookworm, I knew where I wanted to go. I knew what I wanted the result to be, but my experience was really like groping around in the dark. I didn't know, I didn't have like a structure written out, and I didn't know how I was going to get there. So it was just taking small steps every day. It was taking very small steps towards this destination, but without a flashlight.
Yeah, I think some writers have described that process. You know the end where the journey ends, but you're just walking along with a flashlight, only seeing a few feet in front of you as you write.
Yeah, that's how it feels. And sometimes I don't feel like I have even a flashlight. I feel like I'm just, I don't know if I'm going to fall down a cliff. I don't know if I'm going to bump into a wall. I have no idea.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received about writing in your experience?
I think that actually the best piece of advice that I've ever received was, I actually read, I'll mention Patricia Highsmith again. I read her how-to book, plotting. I think it's called
Oh, it was
Plotting.
for the Mystery Writers of America or something like that. Is that
Yeah,
the
it was a plotting and writing suspense fiction. It's called.
Mhm.
It's a delightful book. Even if you're not a writer, she's got so much personality and fun in and she's very irreverent, and she shares a lot about the mistakes that she's made as well as her successes. But what she said that really stuck with me is that when you write something, you should write to please yourself first. You and only you. You should be pleasing yourself first. So there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of thoughts about, it's tough to be published. It's really, really tough. I actually feel like I've won the lottery. I feel very, very, very lucky. There's a lot of wonderful writers out there that don't get published. So there's a lot of pressure to write something that you think would maybe please a lot of people. But I really feel that you need to please yourself first. And when you're pleasing yourself and writing the book that you want to read, then you're on the right track.
That's very smart. Do you have ways of readers finding out more about you? A website? Are you on social media?
I do have a website, robinyeatman.com. I have a website. I'm on Instagram, Robin Yeatman 27. I'm also on Twitter at Robin Yeatman. Yes, those are my places to find me.
That's great. I do have one question. I think I read somewhere that if you could do something over again, would you include lyrics from a John Lennon song in the book?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. That was a really rookie mistake. I had a scene where there were at least 6 to 8 lines from this wonderful John Lennon song, and I didn't have any clue about how that works in the real world. You have to ask for permission when you include almost any amount of lyrics, and I would not recommend that to writers to do that, because the cost and the time that takes just probably isn't worth it. Even though his lyrics are just very special and wonderful. But yeah, I ended up having to learn a little bit about the legalities of that and having to make some sacrifices or compromises where that was concerned. I wish I could have used all of his wonderful lyrics, but couldn't.
It's amazing for something that's so short and so like lyrics, they're very protective. It's really, yeah.
Yes, I learned that you can really only use probably around maybe 2 lines, and they have to be embedded in the text. They can't be on their own line. They can't be showcased. And it has to be a limited amount of words. And so we worked with what we were allowed to do.
Well, I'm glad it resolved itself happily. I can't believe that our time has flown by so quickly. Is there anything else you'd like to share with readers before we have to go?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm just so happy that Bookworm is out there. I hope it reaches book lovers, and I hope it speaks to people who have experienced complexities in their relationships. And I hope it makes you laugh too.
I think you'll find all those elements in the story. I want to thank Robin Yeatman for joining the Poison Pen for a recorded author chat today. Her new book is Bookworm. It truly is ingenious in many ways. It will definitely leave you thinking about how you view the world and people. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another recorded author chat at the Poison Pen Bookstore.
Hello. We hope you're enjoying our programs and podcasts with authors. We'd like to expand them, and your help would be appreciated. Please make a donation at poisonedpenfoundation.org. 100% of the proceeds will go to help connect authors with readers in this difficult time. Thank you.